Welcome to Waking Warriors, where we talk about life, love, lessons, and learning. Happy anniversary!
You too.
I was telling everybody else that.
It's not our anniversary of the podcast, though. It's our wedding anniversary.
This day exactly, too. So, yeah. Little background on us, if this is your first episode. Been together for 12 years, married for 6, and did a lot of growing within that whole span of our relationship. So I figured we'd jump on, talk about it. I know we did one last year, so maybe after we do this one, we can reflect and listen to that one and see what we talked about and, you know, what differences what different insight we have. Because I'm sure, you know, we're better at things, but did we pick up any new tools within those years? Because I feel like we've been using the same tools
Within a year?
Yeah. We've been using the same tools, but we're probably just better at it. Because I can't think of anything that stands out that I've learned. But I feel better at a lot of other, certain things. So, the existing tools. So.
Okay, well, where do we start?
Well, let's give a little background on how you were a psycho and your trauma bond and everything. So I did a Facebook post, and I had a little bit of insight, in trauma bonding, and trauma bonding is where you, what?
Don't yawn and talk. Finish the yawn.
Trauma bonding is when essentially you both have like certain trauma, and there's like a circle, right, and a pattern, and you both serve that pattern for each other, essentially, like same triggers and stuff. So like you do this, so then I do this, and then you do this, and then it just goes around in a circle all the time.
It's like the perfect storm situation, because your trauma and my trauma, like, together, like, triggered more of our own stuff.
Perpetuated our already chaotic environment, So you grew up in a chaotic environment to some degree. I grew up in a chaotic environment. And then, so essentially, like, I had certain triggers and whatever, and
well, it's just like the way that I was, and like my insecurities and my baggage per se, and then yours. I don't know, maybe perpetuated is the best word for that, but just like, I don't know. Like, I was insecure, you were someone who wasn't going to give reassurance. So, like, that was a perfect storm, because I felt like I needed this and you were not doing that, or like wasn't going to, or...
Well, it's familiarity, you grew up with that, so then you knew that.
Well, and that's what I'm trying to explain, is that, like, these are, like, insecurities of mine that then were, like, exacerbated by the way that you were. And then there was ways that I was that then exacerbated you being, like, a prick, or ignoring me, or, like, all of those, like, toxic behaviors. So we were just, like, very much an ego. We were young, not that that's an excuse, but, like, we didn't know a lot, and we know a lot more now. We still have more to learn, but...
Yeah, so essentially, long story short, we trauma bonded because of our behaviors, and then ended up, going through those toxic patterns. We got together, when I was 19, and you were, close to 19.
Both 19.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, because you just turned 19, essentially. It was towards the end of the year. It was like October. When we started talking and stuff. So, and obviously, like, when you're in college or when you're, a young individual, you know, your priorities are certain things, and you know, you're not really thinking like growth, and you might not even be aware of growth, you know, as an individual.
We
You know,
weren't.
personal development and stuff. So, yeah. So essentially, we were very toxic to each other, and that pattern continued probably, I'd say, for the first like I'd say 21, 22, 23. I think things started turning when around 23 years old. 22, 23 would be my guess.
Yeah, I was gonna say when we got engaged was definitely like, and not just that, like that wasn't the pivotal moment by any means, but we were just starting to make a shift around that time.
Yeah. Yeah, we were hanging out with, you know, different individuals. We were, you know, listening to different
You're an
material,
Amway.
reading. Yeah, so that definitely helped. That was kind of the pivotal shift around that time.
And it was before, because we got engaged in September of 2017. So it was even like before that things started shifting a little bit, but.
Yeah, I'd give it a year, so like 2016. So how old was I in 2016? Like fucking 22, 23? Well,
Your face right now.
8 years
I think
ago
22,
right now.
because
8 years ago right now.
we got engaged
so
when we
23.
were 23, so 22.
Yeah. So, that was kind of a pivotal shift. And then we just became aware of like there was a different way of living essentially. You know, we didn't have to continue the same patterns, you know, we didn't have to go through the same bullshit. We didn't have to live with the same triggers. But obviously,
I think for me, I started learning to like be more accountable for my stuff, because I would, and I still sometimes fall into that, but like then I would be so victim-y and like, you make me feel this way and you're so mean and meh, meh, meh. And then at this point, like I started taking more responsibility and accountability for like my stuff, and you were just realizing you didn't have to be so mean. And but again, it's interesting because the trauma bond situation, like also, and maybe that's just growth naturally when you like work on yourself and evolve and all of that, but like we just started working on those parts, which then made
the relationship easier.
well, yeah, but it also is like those parts of us, like the ego and all of that when we were trauma bonding, like got what we were wanting kind of in the first place when we started actually working on ourselves. Like I started showing up more, I started being more responsible, I started whatever, which was an issue in the beginning that like triggered you, and then you started like having more grace and more patience, which the opposite of that was a trigger for me in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you know, once you're both starting to work on things, then you're a little more grace giving, you know, so because you know the other individual is trying. So
I just have a lot of grace in general, but I do. Compassion, understanding, whatever. But anywho, so yeah, made it through the tumultuous years, and then started growing and working on ourselves and doing our own individual stuff, but then we've also done some stuff. I think we were married though at that point. But either way, like stuff together. Like we were in Amway together, but yeah, we were still kind of doing our own separate thing of like working on ourselves. And
yeah, I think it's always been a team effort of the growth and stuff, when we've always been like in the loop of what we're, you know, like what each other's working on and stuff. It's always like it was never separate necessarily at all. And
some of it is though.
Yeah.
Like you've done your own like NLP courses, and I've done my own courses with Sarah. Like there's times we're very much in our own track, but we're still
moving in
growing
the same
together.
direction, I guess. And I'd like to point out that most people never make it out of the trauma bonding stage. Like most people are stuck there, and they just repeat the pattern, and they think that, well, I'll just get a fucking divorce and, you know, I'll go find somebody else because this isn't working. Well, that's not necessarily how that works, because you didn't fucking fix yourself, so now you're going to attract the same individual
and have the same problems.
And have the same fucking problems. So, like when
like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. It's green where you water it.
Yeah, so And I see it all the fucking time. People are always like, well, it's just, this relationship isn't working, it's not, it's not for me, blah, 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 blah. And it's not even about the relationship, it's about you and what you're bringing to the table and what you're supposed to be working on and what you need to process, because that's the problem. You can go out and find somebody else and maybe they have different triggers or different whatever, but it won't matter. It's going to be the same outcome essentially. So because you're never doing the internal work in order to lower your own triggers, or like learn how to talk to people differently or bring it up, or
And it's like the book somewhere, like wherever you go, there you are. So like, yeah, you may leave this relationship, but all of your stuff that you're choosing to ignore or not work on or whatever is coming with you.
And not to mention, you have even more baggage that you're going to be bringing with you from that relationship. So you're just going to jump from relationship to relationship, and you're just going to take on more baggage and more baggage. Because that's true. All those things are traumatic. I mean,
just even like you said, staying in a relationship, even like you're just creating more trauma.
So essentially, and that's where generational trauma comes from. Like, because you have your traumas, and then you fucking have kids, and then you never fix your own personal things, and then it's just passed down, whether that's like scarcity mindset or some sort of relationship type of thing or whatever it is.
And obviously working on yourself and growing is a never-ending journey. So even though we're doing this now, we will still screw up our kids in some way, shape, or form, because we aren't perfect and we're always growing, and we'll be growing even through that process.
Yeah, my goal is just not to have the same fucking stupid shit, passed down. Like, I'd rather pass something different down. Because, like, what I'm bringing to the table now, when I have children, like, dude, those kids are gonna so much better off. So much better off. Like, the presence of now, the abundance mindset, reading books, and, how to control your emotions, talk about ego, things like that. Because these are the conversations we we're having right now in our marriage, and even before we were married, we're having these conversations, and I think that's what, is the key player in a quality marriage. And also, I will say, and I think it's probably harder for men in general, you have to be raw and vulnerable in that aspect too, because like most men, they're like, oh, that's foo-foo shit, or like that's girly shit, or that's not real, or I don't, whatever it is, like, and then that's kind of like a crutch, and you'll never be able to have a better relationship essentially if you don't have that vulnerability there. So I think a lot of chicks suffer in relationships, in my personal opinion, because the men won't step up and lead, and like the women want more and they desire more, but they don't know how to, and it's not their fucking responsibility to lead. It's the man, and blah blah blah. This is my personal input because somebody else might say something different, but they need to, and that's why it's so important to who you choose as a partner. As a woman, you need to make sure that you're choosing someone that's going to be a strong leader and put the relationship first. And then as a man, you need to find some, essentially the same type of thing, but that's willing to submit and trust the leadership essentially. So, because I think that's what one of the things that we do relatively well is, like, you're really now you're better at just following. It's not blind following. It's just like, okay.
Right, and that's I think we've talked about this before, but the word submit has a negative connotation in people's head, and it doesn't mean that I'm a doormat. It doesn't mean I never get to say what I think. It doesn't mean that my opinions don't matter. Like, that is not what submission is. It's having full trust in you and knowing that in the decisions that you make that you are also taking into consideration me and like my thoughts and my perspectives and all of that, and trusting that you're going to make the best decision for us.
Yeah.
And rolling with that. Like, that's what submission means to me. When I submit to you, or and I don't even know, and maybe that is even in my head has a negative connotation, because I don't like the word submit, because it feels passive, but it's not a passive. It's almost like surrender. Like, if you're surrendering to the universe or to whatever, like, that is not passive. Like, that takes a lot of courage to be able to surrender to something. And maybe that's where I think of it too, is because like it's not always easy to do that. And we've built our relationship in that foundation where I can trust you, and so it's easier for me to take that role, which I get a lot of relationships don't, because again, when it comes to relationships where there isn't a leader or where the more masculine person isn't taking on that role, then I can understand that would feel scary, and that would be
it's like a boat without a rudder, essentially. You know, you have no steering, and the women on the boat feels on the women in the relationship / boat feel as there's no direction, there's no safety, there's no there's no trust, essentially. So I think it always starts with the man. At the end of the day, like, the buck stops with the man, in my personal opinion, in a marriage. But it's a woman's duty to do the best that she can if she's more evolved than him and more consciously aware. And, because I see, like, stuff in the den and, the lion's den and stuff like that. Well, my husband doesn't do this. And, well, just keep on pressing on. And eventually, like, something's going to fucking break. Either he's going to jump on board, or, and the same thing, vice versa. Like, she's not whatevering. But I think, the man's energy and everything is just much more, how do I say it? I don't even know what word I'm thinking. It's just needed. Not needed, but I don't know.
Well, in my mind, I was going to say supposed to, which there are no supposed to's, but, like, it's supposed to be like that, where like that leadership role and taking that on. And
it's just how much weight they hold in a family, and if they're not on the same page with their wife, then it's a lot harder to get the kids to follow. Or,
well, and that's even another, like, a perfect example of, like, trauma bonding, because, like, if because, like, we, again, this is our belief, but, like, head of the household, that's your role. And there's a lot that goes into that, right? Like, you take on a lot of the stress of life because you do take that role seriously. And that is where then again, the buck stops with you, right? Like, if a final decision needs to be made, that's going to be on you. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to make that alone, or that what I feel or think doesn't matter, because we're going to have those conversations. But then in relationships where those conversations aren't happening and the wife isn't on the same page and they're not on the same page together, like, then there's more trauma, because then she's not trusting him to make these decisions. Then he's, it's just this, like, back and forth ping pong of, like, trauma baggage.
That's why it's so important. You need to make sure that you're on the same page with your spouse before you get fucking married, before you have kids. Like, you need to make sure that you're on the same page. And it's not just like
married and have kids, you can still figure it out. It doesn't mean because you never had it then you can't get it now.
I agree. But being proactive is the first decision. Like, let's not fucking date a dumbass, or let's not get married to a fucking idiot, or let's just stop and evaluate and think about things first, and then move into something, whatever that is. But yeah, I mean, if you're already to that point, then it doesn't mean that it can't be repaired and recovered, because sometimes it can't. Sometimes it's just like, it's it is what it is. It's better that people separate because they're more toxic together. I don't believe in staying in a toxic relationship just because you said, "Oh, committed, so I'm gonna suffer the rest of my life and fucking I'm gonna be miserable. So then I'm gonna go to work miserable, and then she's gonna go to work miserable, and she's gonna make everybody else miserable, and I'm gonna make everybody else miserable, and and so on." It just spreads too much toxicity. So I don't believe in that, but I do believe that there's a period where you can recover it. If you take things seriously, and you both come together and evaluate and say, hey, what do we need to do here? Because there's been a couple times where we've had those conversations. I'm like, bro, what the fuck are we doing here? I'm like, this is not working right now. I'm like, whatever this is, I can't keep doing this. And it wasn't, and it was on you, and on the one particular time that I'm thinking of, when we're on the couch in Allendale. And I don't even remember all the stuff. I just remember that being a pivotal moment. because you had something going on and whatever it was, and I was just like, and I let you sit in the shit and then do the shit and whatever else, and then you almost like snapped out of it almost just like that. Like it was just whatever. But it was my communication saying like, listen, I can't do this anymore. This is not okay. We need to fucking do something different. And I think most men, again, they've been pussified so much, they're not willing to, step on toes, and they're not willing to say, hey, listen, this isn't working. They'll just let it perpetuate. They'll just sit with it, and then they'll eventually
go have their guys' night.
They'll go have their
about
guys'
their
night.
relationship and spend less time at home and help less around. And then it's just
they'll just
snowballing.
avoid. Yeah, they'll just avoid and neglect and suppress and everything else, and go find a mistress and shit like that because now we're not connected, and this woman makes me feel special and blah blah blah, and then there's no communication, and that leads into my most pivotal, or the thing that I set the highest is transparency and communication in a relationship. But you had something to say?
And all of this sounds nice and easy and whatever, but it's not always, right? Like, obviously there are times when...
It's a shit show. Like, that conversation was brutal. Like, we were literally talking, it was almost like divorce was on the line at that point. Like, that was what we were...
And not that we were, like, explicitly saying, like, okay, we're going to leave each other, but, like, you were like, I'm not going to do this anymore. So, like, if this is going to continue, like...
Yeah.
And even that example, like, when I think about it, like, I was definitely in a pattern and just, like, letting it run. And even sometimes, not super recently, but I would say probably within the past couple years, like, there are times when I'm, like, rolling down that pattern track, and I'm like, I know that I'm here, like, F it, I'm going with it. Like, but that was more of an unconscious one that I was rolling with at that time.
And that's where, in a marriage, keeping each other accountable the best you can, like, it's not always going to go perfect. But keeping each other accountable is not always the kindest thing or like the funnest thing or whatever it is. Like
We're having the conversations.
You're gonna call people. You're gonna call each other out, and then that might cause a fight or something, or a tiff or whatever. Like you just have to get used to being in rough waters at some point. It's not all smooth sailing. Like. This in our first probably let's see, up until the year before we got engaged, or the year that we got engaged, or something like that. So for like, I don't know, for 5 to 6 years, it was fucking rough. It was really rough.
Rough waters.
Yeah, our first 5 to 6 years were very rough. Like, it was mostly trauma bonded shit, I would say.
It was like 4 years.
No, it was like 5 to 6.
13, 14, 15, 16-ish.
16, probably 17. We got married or engaged in 17.
Yeah, we were in Amway in 16.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'll say 4 to 5 years. Whatever. The point is, like, it was years of bullshit. Like, and it's very uncomfortable, and that's where people never want to go. So they go into their their dating, and everything's wonderful and blah blah blah, and they get comfortable, they settle in, and they're like, oh cool, this is great. And odds are they haven't really been extremely transparent with each other during the dating period. Like it took years for you to figure out a lot of things about me. Like fucking A, Jesus, because I was just so good at hiding them, and like everything else.
Didn't care if I knew.
Didn't care if you knew. Yeah, it was just like, and that was what I grew up in. So like that was normal to me, So that was what I was used to, and I didn't know any better at the time, and eventually like, okay, cool, like now we can fix it. But again, it took years to of pushing and growing and to get to this point. I mean, we've been together for 12 years. That's fucking close to half my life. I mean, shit, that's a lot.
I just had a thought, but you made me laugh. Oh, it's so echoey now with the door shut. The other thing. Okay, so the conversations and the being open and transparent and talking about the things and growing and learning, like all of that has its comfortable parts. But I would so much rather have little pockets of discomfort because we're being open and honest and growing than years and decades of BS. Because like it's like choosing your hard. Like we're choosing when it's hard because we're having these conversations and we're being open and we're growing versus just every single day, or at least the majority of them, being crappy. Like I would rather have little pockets of hard and discomfort.
Because I got resentment, or you got resentment about something
well,
I
I'm just
said
thinking
or
about like
did,
the 4
or...
years where we were in the toxic patterns, like trauma, whatever.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That the majority of that was rough, and so I would rather have little bits of hard than just forever.
And I think in the beginning, if you're anything like what we were, god damn, I wish we would have documented it sooner, because fuck. God damn. What was I saying? In the beginning, if you were as toxic as we were to each other, like, it's going to be fucking tough. Like, no matter what, like, you're gonna have those hard conversations, and you're gonna have a shitty fucking year. So, you know.
And so I also want to like clear, like it was messy, but we also weren't like physically abusive. We weren't like putting each other in like, cause I feel like when you say that, you make it sound like we were like as toxic as we were. Like, there's a lot more toxic out there. Like, victim mentality, calling names, like, not ideal or great. But on level of toxicity, we were not that high. It just wasn't great.
I think we're pretty high. I'm sure there's a lot. I know there's a lot higher.
Well, and I guess toxic can be subjective, but just to be clear, we are not.
I'd rather fucking get punched in the mouth than fucking, mentally abused for, however many times. Like,
well, that's you and your preference.
Anyway, fuck, the physical pain goes away in 5 minutes, but now you get...
It's emotional pain. But anyway, yes it would. If you, like, literally slapped me in the face, it wouldn't just be like, oh, this goes away.
You.
Correct, that's what I said. So that's your thoughts on that.
Exactly.
I don't remember where you were going with that. Yeah, just...
Anyways.
Oh! Go ahead. This crossed my mind because it's almost like... Because whenever we would have those hard conversations, or especially in the beginning, like, then we would have this really cool, like, time of connection. Because it was like, this is new for us, we're being really open. Like, and that just, like, opened doors for, like, deeper connection. And it's almost like now, which... Obviously, I love you and I love our relationship, but, like, now we don't have as much of that because, like, we have all hashed, like, a lot of it out. Not to say that life won't bring more, obviously, that's how it goes, but...
Going into those conversations, I think people need to be aware, too, of how to go in those conversations. Like, you don't go into those conversations, like, as you're laying in bed and you're like, oh, by the way, blah, 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 like... She would love to do that shit.
Once in a while, it's been a while, I guess, but... You'd be like, dude, we're like going to bed. Like, why are you trying to talk to me about this right now?
Yeah, it's something I would rather do it, either dinner or maybe even breakfast. Like, it's not ideal to start the day out like that, but it's also like you didn't have the stress of the day. You didn't have to deal with the kids. You didn't have to deal with the bullshit at work. You didn't have the fucking dog shit in the house, blah, blah, blah. So, like, you're a lot more even-keeled in the morning. And you have to make a point like, hey, say, hey, we need to talk or some shit like that. Like, like, are you in a space to, what did I used to say? Fuck, are you in a space to receive, or are you in a receptive state right now, or,
something like that.
Yeah, usually I'd ask the individual, and I still do that with, like, with when I had employees and stuff, I would be like, hey, are you in a receptive state right now? Because I'm not going to go to them with something if they're fucking pissed off or they're not going to listen to me at all. So you have to make a point and make, like, you're not putting it on this pedestal, this particular conversation on a pedestal necessarily, but you're making sure it's very defined.
Well, it's like giving it the
proper importance
it deserves. Yeah. Like,
yeah. Like
don't go into, like, an important conversation all willy-nilly, and because that's already just not setting it up super great.
And also don't fucking, try to have stupid conversations when you're pissed. I'm not hearing you. You're not in a receptive state. You're already arguing. This is not the fucking time. So, like, a lot of times, which is very rare these days, but we would say, I need you to leave me alone at this point, because otherwise we could go at it all day and just fucking cycle. I used to follow her and shit. Like, she used to want to get away, and I'd just fucking chase her around the house, and she'd try to lock herself in the room, and then I'd fucking open the door, and I just fucking beat her down mentally and, emotionally. That
You're
much
about
more.
to say physically.
Should have. So, stuff like that, like that's toxic behavior. No one's hearing anything. That's not the time to have that type of conversation. You need to set it aside and make sure that, hey, listen, make a point and say, hey, this is an important conversation. Do you want to have it now or later?
I even remember there was a time where when one of the biggies came out, and it was like the night before you told me, you kind of mentioned something like, hey, there's something I gotta tell you or whatever. But then the way that the evening unfolded, you decided this is not the best time. So then I remember asking what was it about, and you were like, nothing. I'll talk to you about it tomorrow or whatever. And I was like, okay. Because you knew that conversation was gonna be a biggie, and whatever had happened that night, you were like, this is not the time.
Yeah.
And I respected that at the time. I remember being like, okay.
And withholding, that's a thing. There's withholding with purpose. If you're trying to withhold, a surprise party, or this isn't the right time right now because we're about to go to bed, so I'm not gonna fucking say anything. There's withholding with purpose, and then there's withholding because you're afraid of a consequence, or you're afraid of fucking an outcome, or you're afraid of judgment, or you're afraid of whatever that it is. So anything, and withholding is essentially just not telling them anything that you're supposed to tell them. If it pops into your head, and if you make a point to avoid the subject, you're withholding. I know there was something about your friend or whatever. You're like, oh, it popped in my head, and I just didn't want to tell you because you're gonna judge them, but I decided to tell you now anyways because I realized I was withholding. I forgot what it was. I know it was who it was about, but I forgot who it was or what it was about.
Oh,
You said, and you were like, I knew I was withholding, and you changed your mind about it. But in the beginning, you withheld it, but then you realized you were withholding it. So then
I think if it's the same one I'm thinking of, I remember even coming to you being like, I finally told her.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people withhold. I think, and again, that goes back to honest, transparent communication. We've said it probably, numerous times. Transformation Church, Pastor Michael Todd, he has some great insight on stuff, and one of the things that we took away from him
at least
was
some of his older stuff.
Yeah,
I haven't heard anything recently, and he's getting pretty big, so I don't know if there's been some shifts. But his older stuff was really good, and that's where we got a hot relationship.
Humble, open, and transparent.
One of our early episodes is on that.
Yeah, yep. Which I thought was great. I took that away and ran with it. And when you listen to people and pastors and everything, you don't have to agree with everything they say. You can just take away bits and pieces that serve you, and pieces that make sense and serve your relationship or serve your connection with God, or whatever makes sense. You don't have to believe everything everybody the guy says just because you agree with one thing that he says. So
another thing I was thinking, just to switch topics a little bit, unless you got more stuff on withholding.
Nope, not right now.
Okay. That I also had to learn along the way is not letting everybody into your relationship. So there would be times where, way early on, because I quickly learned that the more I told other people about what was going on, or if we were in a fight and how you acted, or it reminds me of, is it Grant Cardone's wife? Says that I'm mad at my husband, so one week I go to my friends, and if I were complaining about it, they get my perspective, they don't hear what happened from him, they only get, whatever, and so oh, he's a jerk. And so then she's like, then the next time we come and hang out, and they're bringing up my jerk husband again, and she's like, well, we're fine, what are you talking about, so the friends only get this little snapshot, and have that perspective of him or your marriage, and only give you advice based off of your perspective of the situation. And so I again, I feel like I quickly learned that, but like when we would get in fights, when we would whatever, like I was not running to my mom to tell her all these things. I was not running to my friends to like hash out all the deets, like, and it wasn't even helpful because a lot of times I would only need that space to like vent, but then they were coming at me with stuff that like wasn't applicable or wasn't helpful or I didn't even like agree with. And so not to say to like not have people that you can turn to if you need support in your marriage, because yes, but there are times that I've gone to other people that I like respect and I respect their marriage and have like gotten support and guidance from them in certain things in our relationship. So not to say not to have that, but like the gossipy, drama, complainy, bitching about your relationship, like I do not do that. If I'm going to complain about it, I'm going to complain about it to you. Like, you're going to know it.
There's you want men and women that you can confide in and, seek guidance. But like that's the point of the conversation. You're seeking guidance. You're not fucking gossiping or complaining. You're like, hey, blah blah blah. This is what happened. What are your thoughts? What can I do?
And I would suggest that person be in a marriage that you
respect.
Look up to.
Yeah. Don't take advice from people that that don't have what you want. A lot of people.
I think especially for us too, because you're a pretty unique individual on your own, but then being in a relationship with you makes me too, obviously. Like I bring my own stuff to our relationship, but how do I explain that? Like I think because we do have a pretty unique way of doing marriage that a lot of people don't get it. And so like I do like our marriage. I do like being married to you. I do have a lot of fun. I do think that like what we have is really great. So like I don't really care if nobody else gets it. Not nobody, but if a lot of people don't get it, and then if that's the case, I don't want your advice on my relationship that you don't even understand.
Yeah.
So,
well, they don't get it because they don't have a good marriage. So
right. Like, I think sometimes
it's like taking advice from a broke person. I'm like, yeah, I don't really care about your fucking opinion.
Sometimes I think like our age trips people up because there's people who are older than us and have been married longer than us, and so they think that means that they know stuff. And I'm like, this is way better than your 50 years of whatever you've been doing.
Yeah.
Like, and again, I don't know what's happening behind closed doors, but like, you can feel that, you can see that, like.
Yeah.
When you're with people.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't want to dive too deep into this because it's just gossipy. But I want to make a point and do a comparison or whatever it is. Like Sean and Saxony, like they put out some really good quality stuff at times, like in the beginning. But now look where they're at. Like it was all. There was so much shit that we never saw, and you guys aren't seeing like the background on our stuff. You're just having to trust us, right? Like we're not fucking punching each other in the face and fucking behind closed doors or whatever it is. Same thing which we did with Sean and Sax, but I always had my questions. I'm like, well, that's fucking weird, like that, I don't know, things don't add up. But they did have some great advice and like quality content to put out there, and again, like take what you need out of that communication and
and we also knew aspects though of him before that marriage too, which I think played into some of that. Yeah. Like had we just seen just their podcast, like it probably would have looked great and like but and whatever. And that's what I think too, like I'm not judging, like if you want to stay in your relationship where you're unhappy and you want to continue your patterns and what like do that. But then I also don't want your judgment on my relationship because you don't get it. Like
I don't even care if you judge me. I don't give 2 fucks. Like because the thing is like
it's just irritating to me because I'm like I don't know.
It's like a scrawny guy talking shit. Like, when a guy talks about like, I don't know whether he can bench more than me or whatever else, and like this is very superficial. I get it, but I'm just like compare. Like I don't give a fuck. Let's fucking step up. Like let's throw the fucking weight on there. Let's test this shit. And I'm the same way. You fucking think you got that good of a marriage? Like let's fucking test this shit. Like I got no fucking problem. Like like good. Fuck, let's talk about what we did last weekend. Or, like, are you going to fucking tell your wife what we did? Because I'll fucking tell my wife every goddamn detail. Like, let's talk about it. Let's put it on the fucking line. Guaranteed. I'm an open book policy. Like, there's no fucking question. But, Other people aren't willing to do that. They'll fucking shut up real quick after, you know, they got to put their money where their mouth is and start, you know, stepping up to the plate. So, and that, again, that's ego. That's an ego trip. That doesn't bug me at the end of the day, because I know if I punch them in the mouth, they're gonna drop. You know, like if I punch their relationship in the mouth, or if I put their relationship to the test, I know it'll drop. But I know that if I fucking put this relationship to the test, it'll be fucking fine. Like, it's already been through the forge of fire to get to where it's at right now. I don't have a problem with fucking testing it again. Like, that's fine. Like, just doesn't matter. But, again, I think we're hitting on the same tools we probably did last year, but I just think we're better at them. Like, did I talk about the need? Like, I need you to leave me alone.
You mentioned it.
Yeah, so if things get too heated, like I said, I used to chase her around, but then, I don't know if I came up with it. Oh, no, it was probably because of David and talking about our needs, and then I just kind of made the connection, I think. I'm not really sure. But, I would say, like, essentially, like, if it's a need, then it's a need. Like, so basically, if we get to the point where we're so frustrated and we know that this conversation isn't going to go to be better for our relationship or to be productive, then you just say, listen, I need you to leave me alone. And you have to emphasize the need, make it a point. Because, again, like, you're like, okay, fine. Then you have to shut the fuck up, walk away, and respect it. No questions asked, that's it. Like, you're just done right then and there. That's a huge tool, I think, because, like, for me, I used to love to chase and fight, though.
And even that one, and this isn't a tool, just an observation of our marriage, but, like, even because before, like, there would be, you know, the trigger, and then, like, we would get feisty, and then we'd get heated, and, like, because even right now, our, like, moments of annoyance or frustration or whatever are, like, so short now. Like, even earlier, whatever you did to me or were doing on the couch, and I was, like, getting annoyed, and I was like, bro, stop! And I just spit. And then literally, like, 2 seconds later, whatever you're doing, like, I was giggling. You'd be like,
no,
I'll fix you. Like, whereas before, I would have, like, been snappy and been like, whoa, stop, whatever. And then you would have got triggered and then met me with, like, well, like, F you then, or whatever. Like, it's just so short. It would have been a whole day thing,
now. Which would have turned into a week thing.
Like, even, was it just yesterday or the day before when we weren't for real fighting, but there was, like, some irritation, so I, like, went in our room and I locked the door. And then he, like, tried to get in. So, like, I was literally kind of annoyed at that point. So I was like, lock the door, and then, like, literally I open it, and then we're talking about, like, how to open the door. I'm like, oh, I like when we used, like, it's just so short when we have those moments of, like, whatever. Yeah. Kind of. Although, because we had a recent one that was longer, too.
Yeah, that was longer.
I think more of our, like, day-to-day, though. Like, our day-to-day frustration or annoyance, because, like, that's going to happen. Like, you're going to irritate me. Before the end of the evening, you'll probably irritate me or annoy me again. But, like, it's just, like, a short little, like, blip, and we feel, like, whatever, and we just move on.
I forgot I wanted to talk about that eventually, too. Maybe I'll have to reevaluate it and make that a podcast soon. Because that was, like, just to work through that whole thing and evaluate it.
So fun.
But anyways, what are some other key things? Oh, one of the things that we stole from Sean and Sachs, which we don't really do right now, but it doesn't mean you can't bring it back in and out, because some tools you can bring in and out is writing on the mirrors with and leaving like notes and stuff. We were doing that pretty consistently for a hot minute. We haven't done it in a really long time, but if that was something, you know, just like leaving each other a note, hey cutie, or, you know, I love you, or whatever it is, and then just kind of on their mirror, on your mirror, or on the window, or whatever, sticky note, whatever, just leaving them stuff. Man, I'm thinking of you, quick texts and stuff like that. I mean, we really don't do that. I'm just not that type of individual personally. So
the text, like, you're not. You would do the mirror thing more than I would.
Yeah, the mirror thing was kind of fun though and entertaining. Like, I draw a big dick on the thing and whatever. Like, I'm a child essentially. But the text thing, yeah, I don't really do good at.
We just don't even really though, like, talk a bunch throughout the day anyway. Like, that's not
Yeah.
Like, we'll chat when we see each other in the evening.
Yeah.
Unless we, like, need to communicate something, obviously. But, like, you're busy throughout the day, I'm busy throughout the day. And we usually see each other over lunch. That's something that is newer. Like, since moving here, I guess, so in the past couple of years. But
Yeah.
we do lunch.
Try
Most
to do
days
lunch if
during
we
the
can.
week.
Yeah. So.
I'd say probably, like, I don't know. Because even on the weekends, obviously, we're together. So it's
Just
probably
depends
like
on when I'm working.
80
Yeah.
to 90%, depending on the week, yeah. So that's fun. I enjoy that.
What are some of the other key components of our marriage that we've learned through? Man, I'm obsessed with the communication. Like, that is, like, through and through. Like, you have to do that.
You never used to talk, and now I'm like, sometimes you don't shut up. But yes, I agree.
Because again, I just feel like I just look at so many relationships. I just feel like so much is being withheld, and so much is being not communicated, and then
So withheld.
so much withheld. So
I
much
think,
is being withheld.
Which this has been more of, not more of a recent thing. We've done this for a while, but I think the emphasis on experiences, like, we don't do gifts. We don't, like, and not to say that don't do that in your marriage, because I mean, maybe gift giving is, like, really important to people, and so if that matters, that matters. But for us, it's been experiences.
We don't typically put emphasis on, like, one specific day, like Christmas or anniversary. Like, today's our anniversary.
Because I like to milk stuff, like, take me out to eat, let's go see a movie, and I don't.
Like, today we didn't do anything. Like, we just sat around the house, but it was very unplanned. Like, we went to a concert last night just because a friend of ours offered us tickets the day before. You know, but it wasn't necessarily planned that we go out and do something that evening. Like, it.
Well, even next weekend was like a pretty last minute decision that we were gonna go somewhere next weekend too. Like,
yeah.
It just worked out that way. We weren't necessarily planning these things for our anniversary. It just they had good timing.
I think that's important, not to put too much emphasis on your marriage and put too much weight on your marriage and put too much weight on these specific things. Like, it's my anniversary. You know, you fucking, you know, and like, you have to have this grand hurrah or something. You know what I mean?
It was like Thursday, and I said something about our anniversary weekend, and you were like, "What? It is?"
Yeah.
And like, that didn't bother me at all. Like, someone would be like, "Oh, you didn't remember?" Like, you'll know because I'll tell you. Like,
and I probably would have noticed, like, the day before or the day of. Like, it's not like, fuck, I forgot about my birthday, like, until like 2 days before too. I was like, oh fuck. Look at that. Like,
but again, for me, like, I just like to, like, because this weekend I was like, I know that we have the Sturgis party in town. I want to go golfing. Like, I want to get some ice cream. So I was like, perfect. I'll just use our anniversary as a reason to do all these things. So, like, that's really it for me.
yeah.
Like,
I think just don't take four agreements. I forgot what the fucking main four were, but one of the main things for me is don't take things personally. I just don't take things personally. I do more with you, but it's really hard for, like, the average outside individual to get to me because I feel superior to them, essentially. Like,
okay,
go ahead,
yeah,
that's true. But, like, go ahead, tell me more, buddy. Like, let's fucking compare. Shut the fuck up. No. And you. Like, you either naturally get my triggers, like, you know.
I do. I don't even have to try. That's what I say.
And then, yeah.
So, like, I really am not trying. Sometimes I'm just like.
But I take it personally from her for somebody. But if someone else were to, like, because I think I have, like, a fucking inferiority, stupidity complex maybe or something because of my childhood.
Yes.
Like, did you remember to fucking
you hear me
lock the door? Yeah, I remember to fucking lock the door.
You,
Jesus
like,
Christ.
hear between my words, and you, like, hear you're stupid, is what I'm saying in the question.
But it's, like, such a stupid question. It's
but
like,
then other times it's not. Like, there's times we're at a hotel, and I'm like, did you remember the key? Yes, Jesus. And then we'll go to leave, and I'm like, you got a key? Oh, shit, no. Like, that's why, because you're not 100%. So, anyway, I want to back up a little minute, because I think more along the lines of, like, yes, don't take things personally. That is important, but also, like, it reminded me of you gotta care, but not that much. Like, obviously, this relationship is important, but if you put it on this so precious, like,
Pedestal.
that's so much pressure. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna F up, and, like, things are gonna get rocky, and, like, if there's just, yeah, you put it on this pedestal, and you, like, expect perfection, or, like, want it to be perfect, or, you know, you take it super, super, super seriously, like, this is way more fun, which my word this year is lighthearted, and I've been doing pretty decent. Like, it's way more fun when there's that in it.
Yeah.
And there's playfulness, and there's fun, and there's, like, you don't have to take everything so seriously.
If you don't have your marriage fixed and rigid. Oh,
Like, that's a lot of pressure, and then we
Yeah.
a lot of times screw up under pressure like that. Like, just, it's okay.
One thing I've noticed within the past year, like, men are naturally programmed just to look at other women and stuff, and then, like, I've noticed, like, that's a typical standard thing for women to get upset when, you know, another woman catches the man's eye, and then that causes stress in a relationship because you're only supposed to have eyes for me. And I'm like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like, on both sides. Like, I don't expect you not to look at another man and observe him and whatever else. Like, I can tell what a decent guy looks like. Like, oh yeah, he's attractive, you know, whatever.
Yeah, because even I'm like, ooh, who's that hottie? Like, some
Guy.
random guy.
Yeah, like that's an example of, like, not being fixed and rigid, and me not taking offense. And
Would
then
you've always been like that?
I have always been like that. Yeah, I've never felt threatened. I've never felt.
No, but I mean, even just like your eyes for other women, like, and maybe it's just a difference between men and women, but that's just.
Yeah, men are hunters, so then they're like neurologically fucking like scouting.
Spread their seed.
Scouting
Anyway.
all the time.
Which, like, that kind of doesn't make sense to me, because in theory, like, evolution, if we want to, like, talk about that, but, like, you want to spread your seed, you want your genes to go as far as possible, where women, we can only carry one baby at a time, and we don't want that person to be a screw-off, like, DNA speaking.
Yeah.
So it's, like, important to be selective.
And I'm not justifying behavior necessarily. You know, like, as time progresses, maybe a man should discipline those types of things. You know?
You said that. You're like, you know, I understand that there's potentially value in doing those things or being that way.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a very, I want to say valor, but that's
honorable?
not. Yeah, an honorable, yeah, maybe. An honorable feature
Way to be.
to have, yeah. I'm not saying just, you know, like, whatever, but at this point in my life, like, you know, and I'm not justifying and saying, oh, that's the way I am, that's
Right.
the way I am, you know, but it is part of nature, and it is part of it. So these things will happen, so don't, again, be lighthearted about it. Like, you're like, oh, look at those two girls over there, literally yesterday, and I was like,
yeah.
where? And you were like, oh, over there by the fucking barbecue thing, or whatever.
And the white boots.
Yeah, and the white boots, and, you know, like, you pointed it out before I even noticed it, which takes away the edge.
To them, I think even.
Yeah, but it takes away, like, the offense, because now you're pointing it out, you know, so, like.
And again, not saying that that's a perfect way to do it, but it works for us. And I think, part of me is like, maybe I'm just like rolling with the punches, which I am like okay with it a lot of times, but like maybe I've just learned to be that way because I'm just adapting to the way that you're being, but it is better for me to be where I am now versus where I was years ago.
Yeah.
Like, and again, not saying that that's right, and maybe parts of me did fully just adapt, and maybe we even want to call it codependent, but to like feel better.
It
But it
serves
serves
you
me.
more. Yeah,
right.
it serves
Like,
you
it's
more.
I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
And then you're
much
also
more
doing it for the
calm,
relationship. And
I'm
maybe.
much more like lighthearted about stuff.
Because it really doesn't mean anything. Like, it's literally, essentially, eye candy. And, like, it's like a dopamine hit, essentially. You're getting a fucking
you
dopamine
love
hit.
those.
I am a dopamine whore. God, I'm so bad. Oh, you should see my driving and scrolling recently.
Oh my!
Fuck, it's not good, guys. It's not good.
Jeez.
It's incredible what the subconscious mind will keep you on.
Anyway.
It's yeah, whatever. Let's go through our heads and make sure that we didn't miss any like key points before we wrap this shit up. Well,
Sometimes I feel like you like beat a dead horse. Like, we have a lot of information in this podcast.
yeah, but let's just go through our
Okay.
heads and make
I'll
sure we
just
wrap
take a
it up.
little
Because sometimes we get off the podcast and I'm like, fuck, what about this example? Or what about that tool? What about this? And I'm like, fuck. I was like, that was so good. But yeah, I'm not
Well, it's not helpful if you're talking while we're trying to think.
All right, well, think.
Silence is okay.
We do a lot of shit together too. I think that's a key component. We share a lot of same interests. Like we go to yoga together. We lift together.
Kinda. I like the gym better when you're not in it. I have my own room, my own space.
Still same interests then, like to some degree.
Oh yeah, or you'll be running and I'll
like,
be in the gym. Or...
We'll go to, like, you've been, for instance, golfing lately, and it's just not my thing at this point in my life, Occasionally I might join you and hit some on the range or something, but it's not, like, last time I went there and just did computer work. But, like, I can sit at home and do computer work, or I can go there and just join you and do computer work, like... So spending a lot of time. I think quality time is one of our love languages. So there's a book called The 5 Love Languages. I've never read it, but they are gifts, acts of service, quality time. What are the other two? Physical touch.
Gifts.
I said gifts.
Oh. Gifts, physical touch, quality time, acts of service.
Fuck. Whatever. I think it's probably a
Words
really
of
good,
affirmation.
Words of affirmation. There you go. It's probably a really good book for you guys to do. I think that was very helpful.
For you too, probably, if you haven't read it.
I haven't read it, but I can still apply the knowledge.
I know. But I said it's a good book for you guys. It could be a good book for maybe us. Yeah, us.
What the fuck?
Us. I want to take the quiz again.
I've taken what I needed to. That's why I don't think, I think quality time has always been important for me, and then acts of service to some degree, but I think that's moved down a lot less for me. And then...
Ooh, I wonder if physical touch has moved up for you.
Maybe.
You like to cuddle now. You do! It was not ever your thing.
So yeah, that's a great resource that we can point you in the right direction, because that was a good one. Oh, Love and Respect.
Yeah, I would say if we're gonna do some relationship books, Love and Respect.
Love and Respect was a really good. That's a Christian-based book about how you men and women, women are have their communication of love, and then men have communication of respect. And if I snap at you, you can come back at me and say, I'm sorry, or that didn't sound very loving, dear. Did I do something disrespectful to you? So it's kind of just like this barrier before it goes into something, it's a step of consciousness, and so then you're not being triggered, because your natural instinct might be to, snap back like you had mentioned before, but now it's, now your natural response is, or maybe it's not a natural response, because what is the fucking fourth thing, stages of learning? Unconscious
incompetence.
Unconscious competence. And then it becomes conscious competence. Conscious competence is what that would be, because you're stopping to think about it.
Well, I was just going in the water, but...
Yeah, so it just breaks the pattern, and it helps, because I think there's a lot of truth to that book. I think that was kind of a game changer for us when we read that, and we applied it a lot after we read it for quite some time. Now we don't really do it but once in a while, and I think you do it more than I do. That didn't sound very loving, dear.
Yeah, and even then, it's still once in a while.
Let's see. I don't know. I want to read Sex at Dawn, but it's not a priority right now. I think those are probably the best relationship books that we could point out. Untethered Soul, I know, is a really good book, and I think that talks about relationships a little bit. So, but okay, I can't really think of anything. I mean, the biggest thing was withholding and transparency.
The only other thing that just reminded me is support. You said it. I mean, it's kind of silly, but the golfing thing, right? You could be like, oh, you want to go golf again, and give me a hard time about it. But you're like, okay, I'll bring my computer, cool. Bigger things I showed up big time for you during your race. Wives and family may not care to do that for somebody. They're like, good luck, see you in a couple days. It sounds foreign to me, but I'm sure it happens that way.
Yeah, and if I do another one, you know, like, and we have kids, like, guess what? The kids will be there, and they'll be fucking sharing the experience, and, you know, it's just a family affair with, you know, all that stuff. It's, if you're actually going to join golf, and we go to you're at a golf tournament, guess what? Kids and us are going to the golf tournament.
Even like when I want, which we haven't, but like when I like mention wanting to go do like a water painting class or whatever, like you're like, you know, if I'm like, oh, so and so can't go, and you're like, well, like I'll go with you if you want to go, like even stuff like that, because like, is it really something that you're super geeked about? No, but like I want to go and want to do it, and so you're like, I'll go with you, like.
Yeah, I think that's just a life skill thing. It's not even necessarily like me I am trying to be supportive, but I'm also like, you know, just say yes to more shit, you know, like say yes to adventure. You don't know who you're gonna meet out there in that fucking, you know, water painting thing, or, you know, at the fucking bar or whatever, or at the concert. I fucking met Ricky. Fuck you. Ricky's cool as shit. So, but yeah, just saying yes to, you know, more things in life in general, I think is very important. But obviously, on top of that, saying yes to your spouse's things that they want to go try and do, because, you know, like.
Or like at times where like
if you want support, give support.
Really feeling like I need some like female like connection, like, hey, I'm gonna go out to eat, like, okay, you know, and it's not like an issue, it's not like an argument, where sometimes I'm sure that is. And I'm like, dude, I just need to hang out with a girl for a little bit.
Depends on who it is. Depends on if they're dumb or not.
Okay,
dumb
stop.
People.
Now you're just being judgy.
No, I'm just being honest. I hang out with stupid people. You want to hang out with some fucking.
Okay, this has nothing to do with.
Are you trying to ruin this marriage? Are you trying to fucking ruin this marriage right now?
I don't have to try. Okay.
Alright, well, if you liked the episode, please share it, and share it with somebody if you think it would help them.
Subscribe on YouTube. Again, this is what?
This is more documentation for us and everything, but we know that we have a lot of experience that we can offer, you know, the community just in general, that we already worked through the bullshit that we can essentially, so
that we have up until this point.
Yeah, exactly, to get to this level, but next there's going to be another level, you know, but everybody down here below our level can fucking take those resources, you know, those book resources, the tools that we offer, the experiences, like a wise man learns from other people's mistakes, and we made a lot of mistakes, so we have a lot of experience, or you do at least.
Okay.
So, alright, well thanks for joining us, guys. Happy anniversary to us, and we'll see you next episode.
Bye.